My experience was so negative. They made a circus out of me. They had no regard for my life or my family. They produced a circus around me. They depersonalized me and objectivized me in every possible way to sell my story. They made it look like I was a terrorist of some nature. My story went front page in Japan, in Ireland. They included the mental illness in the story, but almost at the end of the article, like a footnote to the article. They minimized my condition. My experience with the press was awful.
The Tom Screen podcast is owned and made possible by Ethical Marketing Service. If your business is struggling with Google or Facebook ads, maybe you're frustrated figuring it out or there's a performance issue, Ethical Marketing Service has worked on hundreds of accounts and we can help in this area. We offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you would like to find out if we can help, it's a free, no salesy consultation call and the link is in the description. Enjoy the episode. Thomas Green here with Ethical Marketing Service. On the episode today, we have Alfredo Borodowski. Alfredo, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, Thomas.
It is a pleasure to have you. Would you like to take a moment and tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. You know, my professional label, my professional card is I am a rabbi. And I've been a rabbi for over 30 years. And I was a very successful rabbi here in the United States. Although I was born in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, I came to the United States to study. I studied a Ph.D. in philosophy. I taught for many years. I was doing great. And I was a rabbi of a very large congregation in Westchester, New York. And I was the executive director of a foundation, international foundation. And everything changed, I would say, in 10 seconds. That was on July 19th of 2013, when I was arrested for impersonating a police officer. At that point, I had a badge, friends and family badge, that the retired policeman gave me. And by the way, Thomas, we could have a long conversation about how in the United States, policemen, officers give to their friends and family replicas of the badges. Okay, and in the society of equality, you tell me what those badges are about. The only reason you give them is when a colleague, another officer stops you, that you, hey, by the way, I am part of the family, let me go. Okay, then that is horrendous. And in my case, became really horrendous when I assumed the persona of a police officer and began basically telling people how to drive. And I had the luck of telling how to drive the girlfriend of one of the policemen in town. Okay, of all the cars I could have chosen, okay, and that's how 10 seconds after I showed my badge to that lady, I had basically half of the police patrols in town behind my tail, and I was arrested, and my life changed radically. I imagine I will tell you in this conversation what happened to me in detail, but really, really overnight, I was, for being a rabbi, a successful rabbi, I became the Road Rage Rabbi. I was baptized, the rabbi was baptized by the press with the new name, the Road Rage Rabbi. And I was fired from a job. I have cameras and TV on the doors of my house. I couldn't walk out of my house. And I was hospitalized because I was suicidal. And at that point, it was discovered that I was bipolar, something I did not know. And I had been manic for a couple of months with grandiosity, trying to bring law and order to the universe. And when they gave me the badge, that basically propelled me to the maximum of becoming that law and order and that narcissistic, grandiose person. And never touch anybody, Thomas, never really was violent, just told people, drive this way or drive this other way. And also something I want to mention is that I went to the psychiatrist before all this happened, and I was manic. And because I love my mania, and that's something that people who have a mania who are listening know how much we love our mania. It gives us some superpowers. I was sleeping 3 hours a night and having all the energy in the world. Then I went to my psychiatrist and I told him that I was depressed. And I played the depressed part. Then he gave me an antidepressant. And within my mania and an antidepressant, then really the fire of mania went all the way up. And that's how I lost control.
Sorry, just to clarify, that's before or after the road rage incident?
Yes, I went to clearly I had some weird behavior before all this happened. I sometimes I was very irritated. I had lack of judgment in some things, and my wife basically told me, you must go to the psychiatrist. Okay, and I went before all this happened, but there I lied to protect my mania, to protect my energy. And then I lied, and they gave me an antidepressant, which with the mania I was having, it exacerbated to the point, and at that point I was given also the badge. Then it was a perfect storm. I was manic, antidepressant, and a badge. Somebody...
Well, as you probably are aware, there are all sorts of side effects from brain medication. Did you look into that after the medication you took? Was it part of...
Then people ask me about medication. Look, it is very rare, and I want to tell this to everybody who is listening or that has a mental illness, disorder. It is very rare that the first medication they give you is going to be what you need. We are today, when it comes to psychiatric medication, a trial and error basis. Mm-hmm. We work by approximation until they find the right combination. It didn't happen to me with the first cocktail. Certainly, I was taking an antidepressant while being manic. Okay, that's basically self-sabotage. But then once I was diagnosed bipolar, then we began testing different drugs. And it took me, I would say, 6 months until we found the right ones. In fact, one I took, I don't want to say the name because I don't remember, I don't want to mislead people, but I remember that one morning, Thomas, I woke up with hives all over my body. But I really was scary, and I went to the emergency room. And 3 different doctors looked at me, and they could not identify the root of the hives I had all over. And suddenly my wife said to me, wait a minute, isn't that new medication you are taking that one of the side effect was that you may have a rash, and it's dangerous, actually very dangerous, and you should stop immediately. And I immediately called my psychiatrist, and he said, stop taking it. Okay. And actually, that was a medication that was being very effective until they increased the doses and it became dangerous. I took lithium for a while and my vision shook. I had like kind of shaking on my vision. Ultimately was not doing well for my kidneys. Then we discontinued. Then it's trial and error. Okay, you need patience. Okay, I was hospitalized 5 times, and one of the most difficult things is people in the hospital trying new medication and staying in the hospital just waiting to see if the medication works. And to be in a hospital is not fun. And to be in a hospital waiting to see if the drug works and changing from drug to drug is torturous. Then on medication, I am a pro medication in terms of medication has done well for me. And I take my medication every night at 8:30. Then I have a routine, I have a ritual. And this is what I tell people, make out of taking your medication a ritual. Then every night at 8:30, I take it. I have blood tests very frequently to see that my liver and kidneys are okay. And it worked for me. But it took patience and perseverance until we found the right combination.
Well, that's certainly a positive thing. So well done for going through that process of trial and error, because I think a lot of people do give up after perhaps if it doesn't work once, then I'm not going to carry this on type thing. One follow-up I had was around, you said about the mania. I think people can understand what it's like to feel energetic and also extremely tired, but I don't think people have a concept. I might be wrong, but I don't think people understand what that is or what that means in terms of how it would affect your actions and then how it feels. So would you be able to explain that?
First of all, I invite people to know the rhythm. I at least in my case, I have my mania works according to the calendar. My mania in its wildest form comes to me around May, the month of May, and stay until September. And what I have learned that my mania is connected to the sun, the light, the summer, okay? And almost like the weather ignites my mania. Then one thing that I invite people to do is to try to know themselves. Because I think if you look carefully, you begin to detect patterns, okay, in your mania. Then I know around May that I had to be extra careful. Okay, and for those months of the summer, and I was arrested during the summer, I check myself. Okay, I am self-aware, and after so many years, there are certain things I do which tell me mania is here. I give you an example. I begin inventing words. Something I did in the words of my mania. I created my own language. And that's part, by the way, of grandiosity. You speak a language others don't. You have control. You create reality through your own language. Then when May comes, and if I say something strange, my wife already knows and says, okay, what's going on here? Okay. Then now, as I said, mania is seductive. During before I took medication and I was wrongly medicated, I was sleeping, like I said, 3 hours a night. I woke up with energy. I was writing 3 books at the same time. I was getting to my office earlier than anybody else and leaving later than anybody else. I felt full of energy, but by the same token, I was losing weight. Okay, I was irritated, had lack of judgment. I would not listen to anybody, but I was euphoric at the same time. I have also manic depressive episodes in which I would be in a roller coaster of being very high and then very low, in mixed episodes. But I read biographies about people with mental illnesses, and there is a commonality of falling in love with the mania. Falling in love. I mean, like, who wouldn't like a lot of energy? To be upbeat. I mean, who, okay? And to be super creative, okay? And wake up in the morning and sleep less and achieve more. Okay.
Sounds a little bit like when you use words like euphoric and the extra energy and everything, it sounds a little bit like it would be taking some form of drug, which in the short term would be really beneficial, but in the long term is going to be detrimental to you. Is it like some sort of drug?
I think that it's a good analogy. I think it's a very good analogy. You're hooked to it. You're hooked to your mania. Certainly until you get to know yourself. And unfortunately, sometimes you get to know yourself and you crash. It takes some time. The good thing would be to avoid crashing and learn about yourself in a productive way. But in my case, I really had to go through a traumatic experience to begin the process of self-awareness. But until you get to self-awareness, you're not even reflective about having the mania. You are in the mania. Then differently from a drug, I may say, you don't take it. Okay, it comes from inside out. Then it's very difficult to detect because it's like you are immersed in the mania. It becomes who you are. But yes, it's pure seduction. And you don't want to give it up, and you want more of it.
So if there is someone who is listening to this and they're saying that's a bit like me, meaning they haven't had the burnout, but they enjoy the mania, or perhaps don't use those words, but they're in a similar position in the sense that maybe they're sleeping a few hours a night, they've got loads of energy, and they enjoy that process, what would you say to them in terms of advice?
Okay. Look, first of all, I am a believer on having a team that helps you. I like the analogy of when you see a car race, and they stop by the side and they change the tires and they put the gas and they have this team, that cares about you. And you need a team around mental illness. Okay, my team is my therapist, to whom I see weekly. I go to a psychiatrist an average of once a month to see that things are okay. I go to the gym daily. Okay, we know today from studies that communities are tremendously important. I have a religious community that I belong to. There are other kind of communities like groups, okay? And people who care for you, your family and friends should know, okay, the ones you trust, who you are, and should be a sounding board for you. Then you put that team in place and you take your medication, then you have a high chance of managing, okay? I say high chance because there are different degrees, and I don't want to imply that somebody who doesn't get better doing this is a failure, okay? Each story is very different. But the challenge is, as I said, when you are in it, then it's very difficult to break the cycle and do something. But this is what I would say. Even in the worst mania, And even in the worst depression, there are moments in which you regain control. I call them the sparks. There are sparks moments, okay? There are moments, and I had moments. There were moments in which I showed my badge to people, and at some point I said, what have I done? Okay, and that's why I take full responsibility. Okay, because there were moments of awareness. Okay, you are not 24/7 on the menu of depression. Okay, on those moments you need to take full advantage of those moments. Full advantage to talk with people who care about you. Full advantage of making a phone call to your insurance and get an appointment with a therapist. Okay, then there are like moments. They're very short sometimes. Okay, but they are the greatest opportunity we have. Okay, then and usually what we do in those moments, Thomas, is we fall into denial, either because we want the mania to come back or because we don't want to think anymore about problems. You know, we want to dwell in the comfort of those moments of peace. Okay, and then we look the other way. But those are the moments to look straight on the eyes of the situation and to try to do something on that window of opportunity.
I think that's really good advice. I did want to ask about, you said that you got Ph.D. in philosophy. I am what I would call an aspiring philosopher, in the sense that I pick little bits up of philosophy, but you've, I would definitely call you a philosopher. So from the perspective of your story, what do you make of, if you were to sort of hear that story as an objective philosopher, what would you make of it? The actions first, and then also how you were treated after. What would you make of that particular story?
Yeah, just to clarify, my PhD is in Jewish philosophy specifically, but, I move into, as part of it, I've done a lot of general philosophy, and I studied, my PhD actually is on the application of philosophical theories to the reading of the Bible. Then how different philosophers read the Bible, more specifically on the topic of miracles. How did they read miracles? How they use Aristotle, how they use Plato, how they use mysticism, how they use Islam to read the Bible, okay, and the debate they had. And then it moved into personality type and positive psychology. I made a move. I found medieval, which was my initial philosophy. I love it. But then I began asking how all those questions and issues translate on a person today, and I got into the phenomenon of spirituality and modernity. Okay, and the revival of mysticism in the modern world. After I was arrested and I had 8 months of depression, it took a long time until my cases were settled because of the police. The commissioner of the police association in Westchester said, we must make an example of Rabbi Borodowski. And once he said that, my lawyer said, we are here in a tough situation. We cannot make a deal with the prosecution. We cannot, you Alfredo, they want to make an exemplar out of you. We are fighting a political situation. And for 8 months, Thomas, my lawyer basically froze my situation just to let things settle a little bit. They were the most 8 terrible months. He was on a couch, depressed. And one day, I go up to my desk and I found something that I tell you, I don't know how it was there because I don't recall putting it there. sometimes you think about forces of angels. I don't want to be too irrational, but I tell you, I don't know how I got there. They were my results of a test on positive psychology I had taken 2 years earlier. And I tell you, I don't know how they got there. And positive psychology is the science of our strength. It's a new kind of psychology about what works in the person. And I read my top strengths, and they were creativity, love of learning, curiosity, perseverance, and bravery. And in the middle of the storm of legal cases and depression, the week after that, I enrolled in social work school. I went back to school with the cases still open. And I became a social worker. And through that, then I became a certified positive psychologist. And what I do today, I use philosophy. I think that philosophy is a good tool for me. I love it, and I keep reading philosophy. I love ideas. But what I've done, I have translated all these philosophical theories and ideas more into the strength of people using positive psychology. How do people think? What are the strengths that make people fulfill their full potential? Then I have transitioned a little bit from the world of theory to the world of fulfillment. Like I wrote in one of a book I wrote, I said, most of my life, I love books. Now I love people. What they have found that the life of people are more interesting than books. I'm lying a little bit because I am the kind of person who reads a book a week. I mean, I am a voracious reader. But I read them with how this is going to affect the life of people. But yes, when I talk with people, I used to teach a class on evil, theodicy, okay, and I apply much, I have a philosophical approach. I like ideas, how people think, and to go deep. But I have given in the last couple of years the VIA, which is the instrument on positive psychology and your strength, to over 200 people. And I can see how their eyes opened when they discover their own strengths. And people with mental illness who feel that they have nothing to give, who feel that they are a failure, a footnote in the world. They take the VIA with me, the values in action, which is the instrument of positive psychology. They look at the top 5 strengths that the instrument gives you, and they said, wow, I did not know I had these gifts. And there is like 180 degrees from feeling completely defeated to finding a purpose, which is what happened to me. I was depressed, I found my five strengths, and I went back to school. And it was, I was 50-something at the point. Okay, I mean, and I was depressed. Going back to school wasn't like, easy to do. But once I discovered my strengths, doing it became a natural progression from who I was.
Thank you for the answer. The follow-up I wanted to make about the thoughts that you have about your story. I would imagine that you have you've learned a little bit about how the media treats people through your experience. So what is your experience of that? What are your thoughts about the media as a result of your story?
The first thing I had to say is apologies to my father, bless his memory. He was a journalist, okay? And I grew up in a home where my father had a magazine, Okay, and the magazine was, much of it was produced at my home. Then I saw all the aspects of that, and I think that my father was an honest journalist who respected people and respected the truth. My experience was so negative. They made a circus out of me. They had no regard for my life or my family. The first articles were called things like "The Rabbi Makes a Non-Kosher Arrest." Okay, they make a satire of me. They produce a circus around me. They depersonalize me and objectivize me in every possible way to sell my story. They exaggerated in terms of, yes, I impersonated the police officer, but I didn't touch anybody. I wasn't violent. They made it look like I was a terrorist of some nature. My story went front page in Japan, in Ireland. We're talking about, a person in Westchester, New York, showing a badge which wasn't fake. By the way, the police announced also to the press that I was using a fake badge in order to protect themselves. Imagine if the police says something like, a manic person is impersonating a police officer with a badge that we give to our family and friends. Then the first thing that happened is that they denied that the badge was legit, although I know that they called the policeman who gave it to me and they asked him if he gave it to me. And he said, yes. Then they exactly knew that it was a badge that was legit. Okay, a replica of the badge that you give to friends and family. Then once my lawyer issued a statement about me being bipolar and being hospitalized, then the press didn't know what to do with it because the story wasn't as juicy as before. Now I wasn't just a criminal, I was a mentally ill criminal. And then my actions were not motivated by being a criminal, but by an illness. Then the story wasn't so juicy. What did they do, Thomas? They included the mental illness in the story, but almost at the end of the article, like a footnote to the article. They minimized my condition. Mm-hmm. Okay, because that was taken away from me being a malice terrorizing person. Then look, I understand that we need to sell the news. Okay, I understand the economics and I understand what people want. But my experience with the press was awful. And then I tried to get into some newspapers. See, the way it works here is that some central agencies, like the Associated Press, releases your story and goes to all the different newspapers. Okay, there are central agencies. Then let's suppose that when I was at the end of the day, I want to go and ask the Google, for example, to remove some of the negative stories about me. In Europe, you can solicit Google to remove your story. And actually, you can go to court. Okay, and the court may rule that Google has to delete something that interfere with the development of your private life. Okay, and many people won the cases. Here, you cannot sue Google or request Google to remove stories because that basically would be an infringement of the freedom of speech. What you have to do, Thomas, is to go to every newspaper and ask individually to each newspaper to remove the story. Okay, then imagine, basically you have to say, okay, I'm going to end my life today. And I'm going to I'm not going to work anymore. And I'm going to dedicate all my life just contacting every newspaper in the world until I get to somebody and ask them to remove the story or to change the story. Okay. And I can't tell you how many companies call me. to do that job for me.
Oh, really?
Okay, sure. Company that specialize on cleaning your image. Okay, and what's interesting, first of all, they told me it's going to take a long time. We cannot remove things. What we can do is bury them, tens of thousands of dollars. And people may say, but Alfredo, you've done this. Live with the consequences of your actions. Yes, and I live with the consequences of my actions. But there is a difference between having done something wrong and creating a system by which not having touched anybody, basically your life and your image is ruined forever, okay, on every search that people make of you, okay? And I think that our society has to find some balance. And I think that Europe on that matter is way ahead of us, where people have a little bit more of control about who they want to be in society, as long as they are not dangerous, okay, or endanger the life of others. The right to have a life is a very big, the right to have a life should be a very high right in our list. And especially people with mental illness, okay, who certainly will do something or may do something, okay, and they should not be hostages or some mistake they have paid dearly for the rest of their lives.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I think you've been really transparent about your story. So I appreciate that. There are some, should we say, questions in your profile, which I feel like would be very beneficial to get your answers on. One of them is about loneliness. So how to defeat loneliness. How would you answer that?
Working with people with mental disorders, reading biographies. By the way, I am writing a book. I will mention a book I have written. I spoke with you, but I'm writing another book in which basically what I'm doing, I'm taking hundreds of biographies by people with mental disorders and trying to find what are the common issues. It's like a detective work, taking all these experiences and systematizing them. By the way, Thomas, that's my going back to philosophy. You asked me about philosophy. That's what a philosopher would do. Would take all these experiences and trying to create a system out of them. Then loneliness is there. But loneliness is an issue of postmodernity. Okay? We are human beings, gregarious animals, and we have done everything we can in the postmodern world through the values of autonomy and individualism and self-made, okay, and success. We have done everything we can to increase self and diminish community. There are a lot of good things about this, because I think everybody has the right to build a journey and find fulfillment. But the price is enormous. They just keep, the longest study on human fulfillment by Harvard that began in 1930s on a group of over 600 males just came out, a book. I forgot the name of the head of the research of the longest study on well-being. And the conclusion of the study is that the number one factor on happiness is community. Okay? People with mental illness already feel like freaks. We don't belong. Okay? We have issues of self-definition. Do we belong to humanity? Are we out on the margins of the cosmos? Okay, are we an anomaly? Our lives sometimes run on a parallel universe. Okay, we don't find work. We feel so alienated. There are many of us living their lives in a room, isolated, fearful of communicating. Okay, then in a world of loneliness for everybody, we are loneliness over loneliness over loneliness, the deepest loneliness. I don't like social media in many ways, but I know many people who have found communities through social media. And then my advice for them is find the right community.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't think that social media is bad. I think that you have to be selective and smart about which community you engage with. I am still believing that faith communities are very powerful. Okay. Maybe you're not religious. Maybe you don't have a strong belief. But to have a place to go where people are nice and people care, okay, wow, that could be healing, okay? Then try to find a place with good people, okay? I go once in a while to a group, okay, a therapeutic group, okay? It's wonderful. Sometimes I say, I don't want to hear problems. then I don't go this week because I have enough with mine, okay? But sometimes to go and to hear that you're not alone, that saying that the pain of others doesn't diminish your pain is wrong. Unfortunately, the pain of others diminish your pain in terms that you are not a lonely voice in the universe.
You touched on happiness. Does happiness and loneliness correlate in terms of if you have a community, you're also more happy?
That's what the studies show. Study after study after study find a correlation between community and happiness. I mean, it's established scientifically, okay? There is no question about it. And you're talking to somebody who is not a community-oriented person. I am a reader, I meditate. I like to be mostly by myself, okay? But the power of community is proven. It has to be a healthy community, okay? It has to be a community of people who care. It has to be a community of people who respect you, who are there for higher values, okay? It's not just being with people. Although there is value to that too, okay? You are isolated to go and have a drink with your friends. That's good too. But on an ongoing basis, there are communities that they are empathic, okay? But no question that it has been shown today beyond dispute that community is essential for the well-being of the person. And at the same token, people with mental illness are the most isolated people. Then here you have a terrible potential dynamics, okay, of conditions which isolate you and solutions which are connected to community. Make community your goal, whatever that is. Okay. Then on your list of goals about getting better, one, it should be, how can I increase my community approach? Okay. Don't think that you're going to get out of this by yourself. Although I am in that way, I always think that the journey to getting better begins with self-awareness. But community is so important. We saw it on COVID, by the way. Today, after 2 years of being isolated and suffering, by the way, I think that we should be a society where community is self-evident. If we don't understand the power of community after being isolated, okay, and restrained from others, then we will never learn. Okay, the depression that rampant in this country, okay, through COVID. Then in some way, Thomas, I should be preaching to the choir here in terms of the power of community.
Well, that comes back to the self-reflection thing, right? If you're conscious of why things are happening, then you would admit that that's the case. But if you're not self-aware, then you probably wouldn't notice, right?
That's why I am a champion of positive psychology, and I'm going now to Chile, Argentina, and Mexico on a very long trip of over a month and a half. And I'm going to be talking about mental illness and my book, which in a few minutes I'm going to invite people to download for free. Then if you stay to the end of this, by the way, you're listening, wait to the end, you'll get the book for free. Then I'm going to be traveling to those 3 countries on a crazy schedule, and going to be talking about mental illness and the new book, but it's all going to be from the perspective of positive psychology. In terms
Could you give a summary of the difference between normal psychology and positive psychology?
Yes, that's a great question. Positive psychology was born in 1998. It's relatively new by Martin Seligman, a psychologist who at that point was the president of the Association of Psychologists in the United States. And differently from traditional psychology, positive psychology is psychology of what works. Okay, traditional psychology work with neurosis, trauma, okay, what is not going well. Then Martin Seligman said, wait a minute, that's not all who we are. Our psyche also has good things going on. Flourishing, happiness, courage, resilience, optimism, okay? These are all part of our psychic system. And we are writing articles and doing everything to try to fix problems instead of learning how to maximize what works. Why we don't have papers and studies and experiments on flourishing? Why we don't have those experiments of how to become more optimistic? And a revolution was created, and now we had hundreds, thousands of studies of just to give you the power of this, positive psychology was the most attended class at Harvard ever. More than business, more than technology, more than law school. This was taught by psychologist Tal Ben-Shahar at Harvard. Positive psychology, the most attended class. Why? One of the reason is that studies show that 45% of college students feel depressed to the point of being dysfunctional. 45%. We are a depressed society. Okay, and then all run to this positive psychology. At Yale, Lori Santos, a psychology, also taught positive psychology. 25% of students at Yale took the class. Okay, then now we have all this body of evidence about the science of flourishing, the science of being happy, and we have an instrument called the VIA, the Values in Action, that takes only 25 minutes, is found at the website VIA Institute, is it VIAinstitute.org or VIAinstitute.com, I don't recall, but you just Google VIA instrument, and it's free. You can take the instrument for free, and we'll give you your 24 strengths of positive psychology in hierarchical order. And the top 5 strengths are your signature strengths, which are the ones at the core of what works in you. And then instead of spending our energy on seeing what doesn't work, we spend our energy flourishing. It's like I tell people, imagine that you are 5 feet and an excellent runner at the Olympics, okay? And a coach comes and said, you know something, do long jump. If you work at it for the next 5 years, you're going to get great at it. But you are 5'2" and you're running well. Okay? Then yes, you could spend 5 years trying to jump long, but you are already good at running. It is better to spend those 5 years at being even better at what you can do than to trying to become what you are not good at. And what we do usually, we think that we are going to get better at fixing problems rather than at being the best we can be at what we are already good. We have this fixing problem mentality, and that depresses us. Then what I do with people is help them to discover what they are already good at that I don't know, that they don't know, because we dwell in the problems. Then with people with mental illness, imagine, Thomas, everything is dark. I am good at nothing. My life is a complete failure. I have no skills. And we take the VIA together, boom. I did not know that curiosity was my top strength. Then the next question is, okay, what can you be curious about? And we shift immediately from learning our strength to the question of application. And it's a natural move. Once you know who you are and your strength, the next question is, what do I do with them immediately? And I've seen magic, especially not on therapy so much, on coaching. Clearly, you still need traditional therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, to solve the issues which are traumatic. Then positive psychology does not replace traditional approaches. But for coaching, for immediate objective making, goals making, okay, changing your mood, changing your self-perception, beginning the journey of self-awareness, I do not know a better tool. On my book, let me, on my book, and let me just invite people, the book is called The Wisdom of Mental Illness, Finding Strength in Your Struggles. The Wisdom of Mental Illness is free. I wanted this to be for everybody, no barriers. And it's interactive, Thomas. Each chapter at the end, there is a link. You can click on the link, go to a dedicated website, and anonymously, if you want, just share your wisdom. And it can be found at my website, bipolarrabbi.com. That's two R's, bipolarrabbi.com, Rabbi with two B's, okay, bipolarrabbi.com. You can download it. And in one of the chapters, Thomas, in one of the chapters, I have the 24 strengths of positive psychology. And I have an exercise about finding your own strengths and questions about creating goals based on your strengths. Then either you can go to the website of VIA, the institute where the instrument is, but my book also has one chapter helping people find their strength. But the book also, just to give you, this is a book about getting to the next level in your journey. Then there is a chapter on acceptance. There is a chapter on exhaustion, how to deal with exhaustion. There is a chapter on wholeness. There is a chapter on prayer. Should we pray? What prayer? Which kind of prayers? How prayer can help? There's a chapter on diagnosis, how to deal with diagnosis. Is diagnosis good or bad? That's a big debate. There's a chapter on pills, taking medication. What are the pros and cons of taking medications? There is a chapter on uncertainty. How do we deal with certainty? There's a chapter on shame. Okay. There's a chapter on normal. What is normal? Is there a normal? By the way, this is also, you see, I am very philosophical. You asked me about philosophy. It's a little bit different from other books. This is a book that has a very issues which are with mental illness, like diagnosis and pills, but they have a lot of existential issues, which are at the core of mental illness. Okay, there is a chapter on the self. What is the self? Okay, how do I look at myself? Because one thing I find that people cannot define who they are through mental illness. Am I myself or am I my illness? Okay, then each chapter is built the same way. I begin with testimonies of people with mental illness and my own testimony. Then I go into a definition of what we are studying, a definition of acceptance, for example. Then I go into scientific evidence. I bring 2 or 3 summaries, very short, of scientific journals about the topic we are talking about. Then I bring around 20 quotes from different people with questions. Then you can read the quote and connect it to reality and work with the quotes. Then I have a section on spirituality, specifically, how to deal about these issues spiritually. And then I have exercises. And then the interactive part. Then all the chapters, you can read the entire book, or you can take, okay, I have a problem with acceptance. Boom. I have a problem with exhaustion. That chapter. My friend, my daughter, my son had a problem with uncertainty. You can give them that chapter. Okay? And because it's free, and I tell you, the book came out 10 days ago. I haven't done yet the campaign, and I have already over 100 downloads. Okay? Just without having done anything yet. This is the book that you can give to people they need help. It's also for caregivers, okay? Then the caregivers, by the way, are the heroes of the story, okay? Then it's also for them. I hope if many people participate, Thomas, then I'm going to gather all that wisdom, okay? Your wisdom, the wisdom of people who usually are isolated, and we are going to put it all together and defeat and kill stigma by adding wisdom to the world. Here is our voice. Here is our wisdom. Okay, you thought that we have nothing to say, that we don't have any depth, that we don't have any wisdom. Actually, we know about courage, we know about resilience, we know about darkness, we know about light more than the average person, because we've been there. We have experienced what no others have, but now we are coming back to the world telling you, sharing with you all we have learned.
Well, congratulations on becoming an author and all the hard work that goes with that. And thank you for putting it out for free, because I think more people will almost certainly benefit from the immediate access to it. So well done there. Do you have any closing thoughts for us today?
Yes, I do. Look, I believe that everybody, no matter where you are and how you are and what you feel and what you experience, everybody has strengths. The research shows that 2/3 of people on this earth suffer from strength blindness. This is research, serious research, that people do not know the gifts they have. And even in the midst of despair, of darkness, those strengths remain within you. This is like somebody who goes to your plumber going to fix a pipe at your home, and you have a flood and forgot the toolbox. Everybody has a toolbox with at least 5 tools. We do not know we have it. Forget about using them. Forget about having the energy about using them. We are now at the point in which we don't even know we have the tools. I invite everybody to explore the book, to go to the VIA site, to discover their strengths. That moved me from a couch back to school, okay? And to change the paradigm. I believe that you're not defected. You are not a footnote in the universe. You are not a failure. You are the owner of strengths that you do not know. And by the way, once I get a substantial download of the book, I'm going to offer a seminar, a workshop. People who will follow get in the book will get my newsletter once a month. And I'm going to begin offering workshops on positive psychology and mental illness, discovering your strength for free. Okay, then I am a person of my word. But I'm telling you, I will help you find your strengths. Okay, that's for me, my commitment. Okay, and I am all the way into that.
Well, thank you again, Alfredo, for telling your story and being a great guest today.
Pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity. You gave meaning to my day, Thomas.